tell me, what was your impression of the last couple of days of play?
Well, I'm exhausted. And if I'm exhausted, then just imagine how the players are feeling. Uh, 5 days is the budgeted time for a test match. And ideally, it should finish in the last session of the last day's play. You very seldom see that happen because, life's what happens when you're busy making other plans. But this test match was an extraordinary endurance test for the players. And it really was on the last day an arm wrestle with the question being which team would break first. And it was India. In the end, they lost 7 for 34 in 20.3 overs after tea. And Australia kind of plunged through the opening that they'd made. And the last session was you just couldn't tear your eyes away from. And of course, there was this wonderful kind of this ongoing tilt at the world attendance record. Melbourne has held this for as long as anyone can remember. No one knew how many people would turn up on the last day. They offered $10 tickets. They staffed some of the bays, but not all of them. And as people kept on turning up, they kept having to open bay after bay after bay until the ground was almost completely full. The Indian fans who have made a huge contribution in this Test match added enormously to the atmosphere, and I think the Australian fans enjoyed having an oppositional group of fans to contend with and to share their love of cricket with.
What?
So in the end, a fantastic celebration of the game as well as a famous victory for Australia.
Yeah, indeed, Gideon. What do you think was the reason that prompted such an extraordinary crowd?
Well, it was 1-1 coming into the Test match. The two teams had had one victory each and a closely contested draw in Brisbane. These are two very good teams with a lot of luminous, very charismatic names. Australia hold the World Test Championship. They beat India. India hold the Border Gavaskar Trophy. They beat Australia. So there is not a lot of daylight to pick between these two teams, and that makes for great Test cricket when two teams are very, very closely matched, as indeed they were for the first 4.5 days.
And we've seen an extraordinary amount of commentary overnight, particularly, as you pointed out, the very big Indian and Indian-Australian crowd that was there. In fact, there have been many statistics shared that I think it's 1 in 9 people in Melbourne comes from an Indian background, 1 in 12 in Victoria, and about 1 in 27 in Australia. Does this give you a sense of where interest might be in cricket going into the future?
Oh, look, I mean, that's been a factor for a long time. I play grassroots cricket, and I would say probably half of the members of my club are South Asian. In a lot of ways, cricket couldn't operate in Australia without the contribution of the South Asian population. They've become a huge factor. The other interesting aspect of it is that a lot of people flew in from India to watch this Test match. The modern Indian fan is a lot more prosperous and a lot more mobile than they used to be. In some respects, it's easier to watch India in Australia than it is in India. We've already seen there's a massive crowd here for the T20 World Cup game between India and Pakistan. I was at that game. That experience was absolutely unforgettable. Virat Kohli winning it off the last ball of the game. There are some people now who are contending that Australia versus India is the major rivalry in cricket, perhaps even more important than the Ashes. I think for all sorts of cultural reasons, the Ashes is deeply embedded, but for financial reasons alone, the India-Australia rivalry is one of the things that keeps the game ticking in this country.
Yeah, and we hope that continues. Sports journalist from Cricket at Gideon Haigh, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Dan.